Hello students, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Dear students, today we are going to organize an activity, and that is Let's Recap Activity 2020-21. Dear students, this is very interesting activity, and today we are going to learn something. This is very beneficial for the students who are participating here, and this is also very interesting and beneficial for the students who are sitting in front of you, means in front of us. Okay, dear students, as you know, here we are going to provide you some colorful cards. Okay, and the participants, you have to choose anyone. When you will choose the card, there is a name of the chapter mentioned on your card. Okay, and you have to express your views, you have to summarize the chapter. Okay, and also you have to tell us about the theme, about the message, about the author of the story. So are you ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, dear students, let's begin our activity. At first, I want to say that most of the students who are preparing for board examination, from next month your board examination is going to held. So all the students are busy to prepare themselves for the board examination. So every problem has a solution. Every problem has a solution if we change our attitude towards life and work. Okay, you have to do your hard work with your with your great efforts, willpower. Will equal to win. If you have willpower, then you can win. If you have no will, you can't win. Okay, dear students, at first I am going to give you the cards and you have to choose anyone. These are colorful cards and my students are also very colorful. Okay, and they are confident. Here from that side, Riddha Kaushik, pick up anyone. Anyone. Okay, next Muskan. Muskan Kesarwani. Next Shraddha Pandey. Next Sakshi Yadav. And from this side, Asra, Samiksha. White. Your white uniform and your card is white. Okay, good matching. Next, Tanu Pandey and Unnati. You got your lesson?
Yes, sir.
At first, Riddha Kaushik, tell me, what's your lesson? Okay, Evans, Ties and O level. Next.
Sir, we can't hit mommy.
Okay,
The last lesson.
the last lesson. But this is your first lesson. The title of the lesson is the last lesson, but this is your first lesson of your textbook Flamingo. Okay? Sakshi,
Lost the spring.
Lost Spring.
So the
Asra,
trap.
The Rat Trap. Samiksha, Deep Water. Okay. Urvasi,
The third level.
the third level. Tanu, Indigo. Unnati,
The last lesson.
the last lesson. Okay. It gives me immense pleasure to know the students who are going to participate in this activity and they are going to give their best performance. Okay? So best of luck for the students. At first, I would like to invite Sakshi Yadav. She is going to tell us about the lesson Lost Spring. Dear students, today we are going to learn something. This is very interesting activity and not only the participants but also audience. You will get some benefits. Okay, Sakshi?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, respected subject teacher and all my dear friends. I, Sakshi Yadav of class 12 bio, have come before you all to represent my thoughts regarding the chapter Lost Spring, whose writer is Anish Young. This chapter is an excerpt from author's book Lost Spring, Stories of a Stolen Childhood. In this chapter, she describes us about two different stories having same theme, that is poverty as well as child labor. In first part, she describes us about the poor rag pickers that they have come from Simapuri, and in second part, she describes us about the miserable condition of Bengal maker of Firozabad. In first part, she tells that the rag picker have come from Dhaka. Settlement of this rag picker is in the area of Simapuri. Destruction has come to their field and home due to storms. They are certainly very poor and lack various resources. The means of survival for the rag picker is the garbage, but for the children, it's a wondrous thing. The narrator watches Sahib every morning as he scrounges for the gold in the neighborhood. These people have ambitions and desire, but the problem is that they do not know the way to make them possible. Later, Sahib joins a tea stall where there is a possibility to earn 800 rupees on all meals. However, this job have deprived him of his freedom. In second part, the narrator describes us about the second character named Mukesh. Mukesh is a boy who belongs to the family of Bengal maker. Firozabad is famous for its amazing glass-blowing industries. There is an employment of nearly 20,000 children in the particular business. No one over there understands the law that forbids child labor also. These children live in a dreary cells. They work near to hot furnaces that makes them blind when they enter to adulthood. These children do not have any option to escape from this trap. But there's something different about Mukesh. Mukesh has big dream and his desire is to become a motor mechanic in his future. Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay, very nice, Sakshi Yadav. I would like to ask a question. What is our aim? What is our aim? What's our aim? Do you know? Dear students, our aim is academic excellence. Our aim is academic excellence. Next, I am going to invite Shraddha Pandey. She is going to tell us about her chapter, The Last Lesson.
Good morning everyone, I am Shraddha from class 12th Humanities, and as mentioned in my card, I have got the opportunity to explain you the last lesson. So the last lesson was written by Alphonse Daudet. He was a French novelist and a short story writer. So this story was set in the days of Franco-Prussian War, and France was defeated by Prussia and Prussia was led by Bismarck. So this story is centered around the importance of one's own language for any race and why it is crucial to safeguard it. So let's begin. French was very late for school that day and was in great dread of a scolding because M. Hamel had said that he would ask questions on participles. So he thought of running away and spending the day outdoors. What was the climate of the scenario? It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods. Woods is referred to as forests. At the back of this sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So it was much more tempting than the rule of participles. But anyhow, he resisted himself and hurried off to school. When he was passing by the town hall, he saw that there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all the bad news had come from there, the lost battles, the draft, the orders of commanding officers. So he thought, what can be the matter now? These are the words of French. After that, anyhow, he thought to himself, what can be the matter now? And he finally reached the M. Hamel's garden. So usually when school began, there was a great bustle, which could be heard out in the streets. The lessons repeated in unison, teachers, ruler rapping on the table, knocking on the table, and closing and opening of desk. But that day, there was a calmness in the school. Everything was as still as Sunday morning. After that, French noticed that his teacher had worn his ceremonial attire, his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and his little silk black cap. But the thing surprised the French most was to see on the backbenches that were always empty, the village elders were sitting quietly like themselves. After that, he noticed that the old houser, the former postmaster, the former mayor, and the old houser had brought an old primer with him. After that, M. Hamel said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you." The order had come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow, and this is your last French lesson, so I want you to be very attentive. These are the words of M. Hamel. After that, what a thunderclap these words to me. French was feeling sorry for not learning his lessons, for seeking bird's egg, for going sliding on the Saar. And the books that had seemed such a nuisance to him were now old friends that he couldn't give up. Now he understood why the village elders were sitting quietly on the back benches. It was their way of thanking their master for his 40 years of faithful service and for the respect to their country that was theirs no more. After that, M. Hamel mentioned the great trouble with Alsace. So what was the great trouble with Alsace? The great trouble with Alsace was that she puts off learning till tomorrow. Here it shows procrastination, and as we know, procrastination is very bad for us. After that, he also mentioned that the fellows out there will have the right to say, "How is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language?" After that, he also blamed parents that they were not anxious enough for your studies. They preferred to put you to work on farms and mills. And he also blamed himself. He said, "Haven't I often sent you to water my flowers? And when I wanted to go fishing, didn't I just give you a holiday?" After that, he talks about the French language. He calls the French the most beautiful, the most logical, and the clearest language in the world. After that, he mentioned the statement that when people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had a key to their prison. That day, M. Hamel had brought new copies for students. They were written in a beautiful round hand, France Alsace, France Alsace. They looked like little flags floating in the classroom. After that, French noticed pigeons over the roof, and he thought to himself, "Will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons?" Then the babies chanted "Ba baby bobu," and old Hauser also spelled letters with them. But his voice trembled with emotion. After that, the church clock struck 12, and then the Angelus. Angelus was the prayer of that time, and the trumpets of Prussian soldiers returning from Dill sounded under their windows. M. Hamel stood up, and looking very pale and dull, he said, "My children, I," but something choked him, and he couldn't go on, he couldn't continue. After that, he took a piece of chalk, and as large as he could he wrote, "Vive la France," meaning long live France. After that, he made a gesture with his hand that school is dismissed and you may go now. So what is the story of this lesson? The story of the message of this lesson is that it reflects on the importance of one's language, as I have told you earlier, why it is crucial to safeguard it. So the message of this story reflects on the importance of education and necessity to respect and learn one's own language. It also draws our attention to the unfair practice of the linguistic chauvinism. So what is linguistic chauvinism? Linguistic chauvinism basically means to think one's own language superior while other inferior. So that's all for this lesson. Thank you.
Okay. Very nice, Shraddha Pandey. I know quality is not an act. Quality is a habit. And all the students who are present here, they have habits. Okay. Next, I would like to invite Muskan Kesarwani, and Muskan Kesarwani is going to tell us something about Should Wizard Hit Mommy?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. This is Muskan Keshavani from 12th Standard Maths. I'm going to describe the chapter Should Wizard Hit Mummy, that is written by John Updike. Here is a story about the worldview of a little child and difficult moral question that she raises during the story session with her father. So firstly, story begins with the daily routine that Jack had been following for 2 years with his daughter Jo, and the basic plot of the story that is used to be same revolving around Rosa, an animal that is changed in every stories. So further, Rosa has a problem, goes to the wise owl for solving it, and the wise owl suggested him to go to the wizard, and wizard solved his problem by using magic. Rosa has insufficient fees, so on asking when wizard asks for his fees, so he also shows Rosa where and how more money can be found. So Rosa finally pay the fees and goes back to his house happily, and the family have their dinner together. So one day at Joe's insistence, Jack narrates a story about Roger Skunk. Roger Skunk wanted to play with other animal, but they would run away because he smelled very bad. So like earlier Rogers in these stories, he went to the wise owl, and the wise owl suggested him to go to the wizard house. So Roger reached the wizard house and described his problem of smelling bad. So Wizard House solved his problem by giving his smell like roses, and Wizard finally changed his awful smell, and Rogers got the new smell of roses smell. So, but Roger Skunk's mother did not like this fact because she did not like that type of smell. So she got infuriated and angry, and she took Roger to the wizard and hit the wizard over his head. But Joe interrupted her father and also said that he should also hit the wizard over his head, and Roger Skunk's mother and next and refused to change the smell. So when mother and son returned their home happily, and waited for Skunk's father who was coming from Boston in evening. So further, when the Jack went to the downstairs, he saw his wife was busy in painting the furniture. His wife was complaining about the delay in his coming down. So at that time, Jack felt in a very ugly middle position, as he could not satisfy his 4-year-old daughter, as well as earn rebuke from his wife. So and further, he also found himself in a very imaginary world of the stories, and dull and meaningless life where he was living in. So that's all in this story. Thank you so much. I hope you all like it. Thank you so much.
Okay, Muskan, very nice. Next, I would like to invite Riddha Kaushik. Riddha Kaushik is going to tell us about the lesson Evans, Tice and O-level.
A very good morning to everyone present here, and Mr. RP sir, my respected teacher. Today I am going to summarize the chapter Evans, Tice and O-level by Colin Dexter. This is a very hilarious story that tries to convey the fact that we should never underestimate the abilities of anyone. So the story mainly has 4 characters: the Evans, McLeary, Stephens and Jackson, along with 2 supporting characters, the governor as well as the superintendent of the education board. So the chapter starts when the governor and the secretary of the education board are talking about how Evans, a prisoner, wants to sit the examination for German O-level. They are talking about how talking about making the required preparations, and they talk about how McLeary, a parson, would be invigilating the examination. The day of the examination comes. Evans's cell is thoroughly searched for items that he could use to hurt McLeary or escape from the prison. He is known from escaping from the prison, and is also known as Evans the Break. McLeary comes, and he is also thoroughly searched. The only thing that one could raise an eyebrow at was a thin tube that a small child could have used to swim. And the examination is conducted successfully, and McLeary is escorted off the premises. And when Stephens comes back to the cell, he finds that a injured man is lying in the cell. His first instinct is that it's Evans, but then he understands that why would it be Evans? He could have escaped. Then he thinks that it is McLeary. He helps the wounded man up, and the man is not concerned about his health. He is shouting about how he knows where Evans has gone. The governor is called, and arrangements are made to get to Evans wherever he has escaped. McLeary is sent, or the supposed McLeary is sent to the hospital, and the search is conducted. After some time, the governor wishes to know how McLeary's treatment is going on, so he contacts the hospital, where he finds that no one of the name McLeary or any parson has been admitted to the hospital. Then he understands what has happened, and he understands that that was not McLeary, but was actually Evans in disguise. Then he looks at the correction sheet as well as the question paper, and he understands where he has gone. He understands that Evans has gone to the Golden Lion in Chipping Norton using the index number and the center number. Now the scene shifts to Evans enjoying his newfound freedom. He is very smug at how he has escaped, and he is entering the Golden Lion Hotel. There he enters the room and finds a unwelcome surprise. The governor is waiting there on his bed. The governor then explains how he has found and explains to the Evans what was his mistake in his escape plan. The governor very smugly escorts Evans down to the prison van and says that they would be meeting very shortly. This was the governor's mistake, as in the prison van we find out that the guards were actually Evans's men and they escape into the sunset. So this lesson does try to say that the authorities should never underestimate the abilities of the inmates or the criminals to underwit them. This is a war of wits. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ruddha Kaushik, very nice. Now I would like to invite Asra Fatima. Asra Fatima is going to tell us about the lesson, the rat trap. Okay, so are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, my dear subject teacher and my all dear friends. I am Ashraf Fatma from your class 12th Bio, and I would like to thanks my dear teacher for giving me opportunity to summarize the chapter The Rat Trap. The author of this chapter is Selma Lagerlöf, who is a Swedish teacher and a writer who had won first Women Writer Nobel Prize in Literature. The theme of this chapter is that essential goodness in human beings can be awakened by understanding, love and care. So there is total 4 characters. The first one is the peddler, the crofter, the iron master and his daughter Edla Williamson. So the main character of this story is the peddler, who is a rat trap sailor, a petty thief, beggar and a vagabond. So one dark night, the peddler reached the crofter place and asked for the shelter for that night. As the crofter is so talkative and he has no family and friends, during the days of his prosperity, he worked at Ramso Iron Work. And now his cow supports him. He had earned 30 kroner from selling cow's milks. So after seeing the incredulous reaction of the rat trap sailor, he showed him the money. Next day, both left the cottage at the same time, but after 30 minutes, the rat trap come to the cottage and smashed the pane of a window and steal those 30 kroner from the pouch in which they were kept. So now he dared not to continue with the public highways. So he turned into the forest. First hour make him no difficulty, but later in the day it became worse for him. Path twists back and forth strangely. Now he recalled his thought that about the word, that the word is a big rat trap, and comfort and joys as like rat trap offers cheese and pork. As soon as rat was tempted to touch it, it trapped him. Now he recalls his thought in forest that he himself be fooled by the bait and trapped here. So due to tiredness, he laid his head down in the ground, and he heard a regular sound of thumping iron, which is coming from Ramso Iron Work. So the peddler meet the iron master there. The iron master, it was late in December and it was a day before a Christmas service, and so the iron master mistook him as an old regimental comrade and he invited him for the Christmas party.
But the peddler refused him as he was a thief also. So he thought that going to Manor's house is like throwing himself voluntarily in the lion's den. So he refused his invitation. After some time, Adela Williamson, the daughter of Iron Master, come and invited him again. She found the peddler alarmed and frightened. She sensed that he is either a thief or escaped prisoner, but still she behaved very friendly to him. Then he accepted the invitation and go for the Christmas night. Adela had arranged clothes, foods, and also even gift him a suit for that night. The peddler became startled because of the very friendly and beautiful nature of Adela. So he could not said anything about him. Then next day, when Christmas arrived, the Iron Master and the Adela Williamson go for the Christmas service. They learned there that an old crofter had been robbed by a person who sells rat trap. Adela was very sad after knowing this, and when they reached their house, she found that a letter written with jagged character and then 10 kroners notes with small rat traps. In letter written by honor and noble miss, as you have very nice to me, as if I was a captain, I want to be nice with you in return. High regards, Captain on Stale. And at last, I want to share the thoughts rising in my mind that there is a goodness hidden in every human beings, but due to getting entangled in problems, the one could not able to recognize it. As humans are the best creation of God, and it is our responsibility to be supportive of another person. Thank you so much.
Okay. Very nice, Asra Fatima. You are very creative mind, I know. And next, I would like to invite Samiksha. Samiksha is going to tell us about deep water. Dear students, just like all the students, we always try to do more. What? Do more. Read more. Write more. Think more. Why? Because ye dil mange more.
Good morning everyone, I am Samiksha from class 12th Humanities, and today I am going to summarize the chapter Deep Water as mentioned in my card. So this chapter is written by William O. Douglas, and this is an excerpt from Man and Mountains by Douglas.
Yes.
So let's summarize the chapter. This is an autobiographical account of the writer where he talks about his fear of water and how he overcomes this by his courage, determination, perseverance, and deep desire to learn. So William O. Douglas had deep desire to learn swimming since his childhood, but when he was about 3 to 4 years old, he went to beach in California along with his father, where powerful and heavy waves knocked him, buried him under water. His breath was gone, and this incident made him afraid of deep water. Now there is another incident. When he was about 10 to 11 years old, he went to YMCA pool because the YMCA pool is safer for swimming. But a big bruiser boy of about 18 years old came, picked him and threw him into deep end of the water. And just to tackle this situation, while going down, Douglas planned that he will hit the bottom, make a big jump, lie flat on the surface and paddle to the edge of the water. But his plan was failed. He was completely failed. Instead, he experienced suffocation, his body get paralyzed, rigid, lungs aged, and during his third trial, he sucked water instead of air. The light was going out, and now no more panic. He was completely exhausted. So he surrenders and fell unconscious. After some time, when he revived, he found himself vomiting outside the pool. This incident made him more afraid of deep water, and stark terror seized him. Now, after some years later,
He hired an instructor to taught him swimming. The instructor teach him how to swim with the help of rope and belt, moving back and forth. He also told him how to put face under water and exhale, raise nose and inhale, and how to kick the water with legs. Now, onwards on April, he was able to swim, but still he was not satisfied. So he went to different lakes, but still there were some residual doubts in his mind. So he went to warm lake, and then finally he challenged and conquered his fear of water. And he realized that there is peace in death, no terror in death. In fact, the terror is only in fear of death. And as said by the Roosevelt, the 32nd president of US, that all we have fear is fear itself. So this was the chapter, and the theme or the message of the chapter is, as we have seen, the misadventure happened at YMCA pool with Douglas, developed an aversion in him, and he suffered from hydrophobia. So the chapter deals with the fact that childhood fear must not be taken lightly, and if it is not tackled on time, it can create a deep impact into one's psychology. And so my friends, don't be afraid of anything. Believe yourself, you can, and you will do whatever you want in life, as earlier said by our teacher, English teacher. Thank you all.
Okay. Very nice. Samiksha, you explained this chapter very well. And now I would like to invite Urvashi Chan. Urvashi Chan is going to tell us about the chapter, The Third Level. Okay?
A very, very good morning, my respected teacher, Mr. RP sir, and all my dear friends. This is Urvashi Chan, and I'm going to express my views on the chapter The Third Level by Jack Finney. Jack Finney is a sci-fi writer, which means that he writes science fiction stories, and this is one of the very interesting story which is completely hypothetical. Before I begin the chapter, I want to present a small intro of the chapter. Author began the story through the protagonist of the chapter named Charlie, who is just 31 years old, blamed that the president of New York Central and New York, New Haven and Hartford railroads claimed that there are 2 levels at Grand Central Station, but Charlie claimed that it has 2, as he has visited to the 3rd level. In support of his claim, he established number of evidences and make fun of Grand Central Railway Station, which seemed to be hypothetical. Now here's the complete summary of the chapter. One day after work, Charlie experienced something weird at Grand Central. He reached the 3rd level. He reminisces the entire experience to his psychiatrist friend. For Charlie, it is a part of reality, while his psychiatrist friend called it a walking dream fulfillment, which means that he has just imagined and want to escape from reality. Further, Charlie explains about the existence of the 3rd level by establishing number of evidences, such as there were fewer ticket windows and train gates. The information booth was looking very odd, which was at center. He also mentions that there were open flame gas lights and brass spittoons, gold watch, and the dressing style of the crowd seemed to be of 18th, 19th century. Charlie also mentioned about newspaper The World, dated 11 June 1894. As soon as he realized that he was in 18th, 19th century, he immediately decided to get 2 tickets for Galsburg Illions. But he wouldn't, as the currency he had was different. Next day, Charlie withdrew all of his savings and got them converted into old-style bills. But it didn't work, as he never again found the 3rd level. When his wife, Louisa, got to know about it, she worried. After a few days later, they both were looking for the 3rd level, as Charlie's friend Sam disappeared, and Charlie also got a letter bearing the sender's name Sam. After this incident, Charlie recognized that Sam has somehow found the 3rd level, as Charlie always used to tell him about the 3rd level and Galsburg Illions, and Sam too wanted to settle down in Galsburg. Now my friend, you will be surprised to know that Sam was his psychiatrist friend. Now the theme of the chapter is that the life was in earlier times was much happier and there were no anxieties or fearful. The escapism is a significant theme of the chapter as Charlie wishes to escape into a world which is far from his grim realities. Thank you.
Very nice, Urvashi Chen. I know success is at the top. Where is the success? At the top. And if you want to get success, then you have to do hard work. Okay? So are you ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 4th May.
Good morning, my respected English teacher and all my dear friends. I am Tanu Pandey in front of you to present my view on one of my Flamingo chapter, Indigo. So, Indigo is an excerpt from the life of Mahatma Gandhi written by Louis Fisher. It is a detailed account of how Gandhiji initiated the departure of Britishers from our motherland. It was in December 1916 when Gandhiji went to the annual convention of Indian National Congress in Lucknow, where Rajkumar Shukla, a poor peasant from Champaran, came and wanted Gandhiji to accompany him to his district where poor Indian peasants were maltreated by the British landlords. Gandhi said to him that he take him from Calcutta. Shukla led him to the house of Rajendra Prasad. There Gandhi decided to go to Muzaffarpur and collect furthermore information about the condition of peasants in Champaran. In Champaran, most of the arable land was cultivated by the poor Indian peasants and was owned by the English landlords. There, 15% of the land area was cultivated by indigo and all was rendered to as rent. When German synthetic indigo came in market, then the natural indigo lost its position to zero. Then landlords said that they have to get
Now, Tanu, next, I would like to invite Unnati Kesarwani. Unnati is going to tell us about the lesson, the last lesson. Okay?
Good morning everyone. My name is Unnati Kesharwani from class 12th Humanities and today I am here to summarize the chapter The Last Lesson of our Flamingo book. So let me start. The last lesson is written by Alphonse Daudet and he was a French novelist and short story writer. There are the two main characters in this story. The first one is French and the second one is M. Hamel. French was a French little boy who studied at the school of Alsace and M. Hamel was a school teacher of French. So the story is start from the background of this chapter is the last lesson is set in the days of a Franco-Prussian war which is occurred between 1870 and 1871 and in this war French was defeated by the Prussia and Prussia was led by Bismarck and in this war French two districts of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into the Prussian hand and in this story we know what was the effect of this incident on the life of schools and the pupils of the two districts. The story is started from the French was very late to school for going and he was afraid to go for the school because M. Hamel was to ask the question from the participants and he was not learned his lesson. While he was passed from the bulletin board, he saw the crowd in front of the bulletin board and since a war was on, all the bad news were displayed on the board. When he was reached the school, he was surprised at the terrible silence that surrounded the school and when he was entered the classroom, he again surprised because instead of scolding him, M. Hamel was kind to him and told him to take a seat. When he had settled down, he noticed his teacher and his teacher was wearing his special dress which was usually carried by him on a special occasion. everybody looked sad, and the surrounding of the classroom was very sad. The most important thing that surprised the most to French is that villagers were sitting at the back benches of the classroom. Suddenly, M. Hamel mounted on his chair and announced that it was the last French lesson as the order come from Berlin. Germany was to be taught at the school of Alsace and Lorraine. French was very shocked by hearing this news, and everything was clear for the French. Now everybody have something for regret. For example, teacher and students have regret for why they procrastinate their studies and work. Then M. Hamel said something about the French language. He said that French language was a very beautiful language in the world, and when the people were enslaved for the long time, then they were have one key to the prison, that is their mother tongue. And then he opened the book and explained the grammar lesson to the student. The grammar lesson was followed by the writing lesson. While the children were doing their work, M. Hamel sat motionless on his chair and staring at all those things that he wanted to remember just. On that day, M. Hamel was very patient, and M. Hamel stood up on his chair and he wanted to say something, but he choked. And M. Hamel finally overcome by his emotion and went to the blackboard and took a piece of a chalk and wrote "Live long France" in French language. Finally dismiss their classes, and here our chapter is also ended, and we convey the two messages from this chapter. The first one is what is the importance of the mother tongue of any nation, and the second one is procrastination is a very bad thing for us and we should avoid it. Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay, Unnati and Tanu Pandey. You explained the chapter very well, and all the students, all the participants who are sitting here, they have done their best. Really, my dear students, it gives me immense pleasure to see your best performance, to see your best participations in any types of activity that is organized by me or the school. Thank you very much. Have a good day.